let's get started. So, um, thank you again for figuring out that I did print 2 pages. I meant to print them front and back, so if you only have 1 page, you're probably missing half of it, or you will be missing half of it, half of the handout, that is. Does everyone, I can get it if anyone needs it. Okay. Sorry, I usually try to print front and back so you can grab one thing and go on with your life. But, oh well, we will move on. So, this is 102. We did 101. That was, I think it wasn't called just cloud. It was called digital decluttering and cloud basics. Don't worry if you missed that one. I'm going to do a quick review so we can all come up to speed. And we know these quick reviews are never very quick. Yeah, we will try to make it quick. Yeah. Just to be honest, there's actually not a lot of slides because I'm going to try and anticipate for questions. So I'm learning. I think when I first came back and started doing these, I had like these really methodical, like 70, 80 page or 80 slide presentations. And then I'm like, I was only getting through half of them. And I was like, well, okay, which is fine. No problem at all. Okay, you don't need anything today. If you want to follow with me, depending on what we're doing, it's going to kind of change, but this is kind of a generic thing. It's not anything about computers. It's not about phones. It's all about all those in general. But let me go on. Oh, what I was going to say. At the top of the handout, so people have asked me, there's a link. It says linktr.ee/Dylan Wisdom. If you go to that website and you scroll all the way down, here, let me show you really quick. So that link, tr.ee. I hope I typed it in right. Come on. And if you scroll all the way down, oops, sorry, almost all the way down, you're going to see articles, videos, and files. So the articles, so usually I haven't written any in a while, but usually if there's other questions I don't answer here, usually I write an article to answer those questions. The videos are all the sessions I'm recording here, and the files are the actual slides that I have and the handouts. So you can download, print those on your own time too. But if you don't get my email, for sure let me know. But if you lose that email somehow, or you miss a class and you want to look at my videos, it usually takes me about a week to get the video up, but you don't have to attend the class or get the email to look at the videos. They're all right in there. So it'll take you to YouTube and it'll show you. So yeah. Okay, that's all I wanted to say on that. Oh, I think you guys know who I am. I've gone through that before. We'll go through this. But okay, this is what we're going to talk about today. So again, we're going to do a quick review, hopefully. This is, so I'll get to that in a minute. But anyway, we're going to go to everyday ways to utilize the cloud. So this is, the first class was kind of like big concept ideas like this. This is going to be exactly how you use it. It's going to be probably simpler than you think it is. I'm hoping. And then this is the big thing that I really want to talk about, is staying organized and avoiding confusion. Because the cloud can get very confusing because people don't quite understand it. So that's why we're here, right? And then just some other good cloud habits. There's a little bit of security stuff in there too, because you know me, I always have to add my input on that aspect. So yeah, you guys are veterans. You know how all this is. Any questions before I get started? Cool. Okay, quick review. So these are big assumptions, but my assumptions at this point is that you are using the cloud intentionally or unintentionally. That's okay. But wanting to use it better or understand how to use it better. Yeah? Is that pretty fair for everyone in the room? Okay. And tell me if I block you too much. Okay. Okay. So just because I get asked all the time, and we're going to talk about it. So there's different ways to interact with the cloud. But when you do that, you're going to hear things like browser. So again, a browser is usually what you use to go to a website. That's either going to be Google Chrome, which looks like the beach ball, Edge, which is like the green and blue swirl, or Firefox, which is the orange fire around the globe, right? So, yeah. I always have questions on the difference between browsers and apps. So an application, not strictly speaking, because it can be, the term tends to be used interchangeably with other things, but that's generally referring to something that you download and use on your phone. The reason I'm bringing this up is because you can interact with the cloud via both of these things, and I think it's important to understand the difference. Then it occurred to me that I use the word sync all the time. Does everyone understand what I mean by that? Does the term syncing make sense? Okay. So syncing, synchronization, right? Yeah, exactly. So in this instance, it's saying, okay, so I have, and then we'll talk about what the cloud actually is. But if you think about the cloud as just this black box right now, when I have something on my device, a phone, tablet, computer, and it's not on the cloud, but they're connected, the synchronizing is, or the syncing is when that file, picture, document, whatever, ends up in the black box in the cloud. Or vice versa. If it's deleted out of the cloud, it's deleted from the phone. Anyway, it's essentially the process of making sure that there's two copies of everything and they're the same. So even if you have the same document, and if you make changes to that document, maybe the whole document doesn't get synced, but those changes will. And then backup. I think everyone understands that too, but just to be clear, backing up is a really large term we use for just keeping another copy or having another copy. Now, the reason I pulled out these two terms specifically is because, again, we'll get into it, but these are the two main things that cloud is used for, syncing and backing up. So if you don't understand those terms and I start going through all that, you're going to be really lost because you're like, okay, cool, it does that, but why? Yes?
Is there a key that I press to sync and to back up, or does it happen if I somehow?
We'll get there. Okay. Yeah. No, you're okay. We're just talking about general concepts right now. Don't worry about details yet. Okay? We'll get to the details, I promise. Please ask questions, but we will get to those details. So, part of the review is I want to explain again what the cloud really is. Okay? So, all the cloud is I'm going to say Microsoft, right? There's many other providers as we'll get to, but let's say Microsoft. You know them as a company. All the cloud is that they have a computer somewhere. I think the closest location to us is in somewhere in Iowa. So they have a whole bunch of computers in Iowa, and you've got your computer at home. Between the two, there's an internet connection. So even though you don't understand or you don't see it, all the cloud really is you saving your files on Microsoft's computers, because they're a lot better at managing and protecting and keeping those safe than we are, right? So that's all the cloud is the cloud is just a whole bunch of other computers that your computer can talk to, or your phone can talk to, or your tablet can talk to. That's it. It's not as mystical as it sounds. The cloud makes it sound like it's, and I think that's half marketing, right? They want you to make it think it's magic, but it's not magic. Yeah. I mean, it is kind of magical. It's pretty cool, but you get my point. And the goal of the cloud is really simple, right? So again, everyone's like cloud this, cloud that. For what we need on a daily basis, its goal is to make things easier to use. And it does that by keeping devices connected. So in other words, syncing between your phone and your computer, or if your phone to the cloud. You know, its goal is to keep all that the same. Reduce the risk of losing info, because again, it's backing things up. So it's making multiple copies. And it tends to make sharing and switching easier. So in other words, if I lose my phone, I'm like gonna panic. Oh no, all that important information's on that phone. But because you have a copy in the cloud, a backup, in that it syncs and always keeps accurate copies, it makes switching things easier. So in other words, if I get a new phone after the other one breaks, there's already a copy in the cloud. It just has to download. It also makes sharing easier because you don't have to the old ways of sharing, you pull out a thumb drive or anything like that, because almost everyone's connected to the internet nowadays and the cloud's connected to the internet. That's your common place, right? So the cloud kind of sits in between everyone, and that's why it makes sharing a lot easier. Any questions on that? Again, we'll get into details of what that's actually looking like. These are just the big concepts. Yes?
On my phone, when I back out of my list of phone numbers and addresses I have in there, it shows that it's all in the cloud.
Yeah.
So it's not taking up space on my phone. It's just in the cloud, right?
Yeah, and we'll actually talk about that. But usually it is taking up some. So just nothing doesn't take up any space on the phone. There's nothing that it takes up zero space. A part of the goal of the cloud, and especially when we talk about photos, same thing with contacts and things like that. It's just easier to understand with photos. You can have really high definition photos. Like most of the time when I'm recording these videos, even though they're only an hour and a half or so, they're about 30 to 60 gigs, which is like 60,000 photos in that conversion, if that makes more sense to you. So the goal is to put it up in the cloud, but you keep a small portion of it on the phone so you can realize it's there, and then it just helps with that. But we'll get into that more detail, but yes, you're right. Okay, and again, who provides the cloud? Again, the cloud is just a whole bunch of computers that are managed very securely, and they have a whole bunch of protections against them so that if one dies, like I say, when you put your stuff in the cloud, I say you have two copies, one on your phone and one in the cloud, one on your computer and one in the cloud. But really, because Microsoft, Google, and Apple, they put so much money into making sure that your stuff is never lost. They have copies of your copies, right? So anyway, so these companies are the ones who provide the cloud because they have the money and the infrastructure to do so. It's very expensive to create the cloud, right? So it's not surprising to see that Apple, Google, Microsoft are the biggest ones. Dropbox is kind of, it's not used so much anymore. You might have heard of it. They were kind of like, they were very beginning in this space. They kind of started this whole file sharing type thing. So I want to give them credit, but they're not really the biggest players in it anymore. But yeah. Okay, and again, how do we interact with the cloud? Again, the cloud isn't something we necessarily own. It is something that we're utilizing from another company, but we can use it from our phones, computers, tablets, on a browser via our computer. So if you have a computer and you pull up the internet and you go to your email, that's the same interface that you can use the cloud on, and I will show you some of that. Applications. So if you go, so like Microsoft's cloud product is OneDrive, and you can go on your phone and download the OneDrive app, right? Or you can go to onedrive.com on your computer. So phones are to apps and computers are to browsers in a loose sense, right? Questions? That was the quick review. Not too bad. Okay? All right. So I understand that other class was a long time ago, but in theory, that was all old information. I understand if some of it's muddy, and that's okay. So this is where we start getting into the new stuff. Okay. So all of that stuff is fine and dandy, right? Like, okay, cool, I get it. Now, what does that mean for me, right? And that's what a lot of people struggle with. It's like, do I need the cloud? Do I want the cloud? How do I use it? And this is what we're talking about. So again, the main uses of the cloud is to sync your stuff. So in other words, again, the cloud is kind of the middleman. So when I'm talking about syncing here, I'm talking about between your phone and your computer or your phone and tablet. So Apple's really good at this because they turn it on by default and you don't have to do a lot of setup with it. So in other words, I take a photo on my phone. I also have an iPad. I wait a couple minutes and the photo's on my iPad and vice versa. And that's the syncing part. So the syncing is getting all your devices on the same page. Storage. what you were mentioning. So like me, I have tons of photos on my phone. I technically do not have enough space on my phone to hold all the photos that I have. But because I can store most of the photo information in the cloud, it just shows me a small portion of that on the phone. You don't have to understand how that works. They take care of it for you. You just have to understand that part of the reason why we use the cloud is because we don't want to store all of that pure information on our devices, because the cloud is the cloud. Our phones are liable to be dropped, broken, whatever. Backing up. So again, in case something happens to our device and one way or another we get a virus and it crashes, we throw it in the river, we want to make sure that there is another copy, especially for photos, right? I mean, it's documents maybe you can rewrite, recreate, depending on what it is. Photos are,
Okay, I have a question.
Yeah.
If you lose your phone, then are you able to access the information that was on it?
In theory, yes. So it depends on if you set up the cloud properly and if it's syncing to the cloud. But yes, let's say that you turn on syncing, or you turn on the cloud and you sync your photos, which I'll show. Then in theory, yes, all your photos are going up into the cloud. And if you lose your phone, you sign into your cloud account and it all downloads on the new one.
And that includes contacts.
It can include contacts. It can include contacts. So I'm going to go and I'm going to show one of these things where you have to kind of tell. So there's some things, depending on what platform you use, and we'll get to that, what are backed up by default and what things you have to tell it to back up, right? And then access. So one of the things I use the cloud for is I have my computer at work. I'm working on my document, whatever. It saves to the cloud automatically. I'm at home. I'm like, oh, shoot. I don't have my work computer with me because it's, not with me. I go to onedrive.com and I have access to that document from my home computer, right? So that's an important part too. It allows, since the cloud is the middleman and it doesn't have to be connected physically other than through the internet connection, it makes that more, it makes it easier or more, I'm losing a good word for it, but I think you understand my point, right?
Access it from anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was trying to.
That's the shortened.
Yeah, I wanted a good word for it, and I couldn't find it. Yes, way more accessible. Thank you. And the beauty of it is a lot of this, and we'll talk about. There are Apple-specific things, there are Microsoft-specific things, but part of the goal is to make it cross-platform. So I have a lot of people who have, let's say, a Windows computer and an iPhone. So the cloud will allow you to still share photos between those two platforms, even though in general they wouldn't communicate as well as they would without the cloud. So really, they want you to believe it's the golden ticket for everything, right? I mean, it is a really cool technology. But as we go through this, you'll see all of these aspects. I mean, these are the core things. No matter what you're doing, this is how you're on the back end. This is the only goals of the cloud, and then we're going to translate those to things we're actually doing. So the two biggest of those, and I'll go one at a time, is files and photos. Right? Those are the two biggest things we go. And I know I say files. In my line of work, files means anything that is saved. A photo is also a file. But what I'm talking about is like documents, Word documents, Excel documents, things like that. And with the cloud, we can store them, of course, in the cloud. Open files on different devices. So in other words, if I'm at like I said, my work computer and I save it there, I can go home and I can open it on the same one. I can share that file with others without physically moving it, right? It also allows for collaboration. So in a general sense, if I share a document with someone, they can edit that document as well if I allow them to, and it'll record what they changed or did. We do this all the time, right? So you have a giant Excel document of this information. Let's say like it's a list of, I don't have a good example. Oh, book list. Like let's say you have like a book club. Thank you. I'm struggling with words today. Let's say you have a book club, right? And you have a document that says ideas on what we should read next. you could essentially share that with the whole club, and everyone could go in at the same time and write in their own opinions, and it would all be on one file. So, and then transfer easier. Again, we talked about that, but again, if I have guys where I work where they have receipts, so the system we use is really old for expenses, but really old for expenses. But let's say that they buy something for work and they need the receipt, but they have to get the receipt on their computer. They'll take it with their phone, which automatically saves in the cloud, and they don't even worry about transferring it. They just go to their computer and download it, and then you're good. So it makes that kind of stuff easier too.
Are you going to talk about, like, if I have a document in Google Drive
Mm-hmm.
and I share it with somebody who only has an iPad, do I have to do anything to make it open for them or work for them?
We can talk about that a little bit. So let me.
Okay, I didn't know if you were
No,
talking later.
you're totally fine. I think what I'm gonna do, because we're actually doing really good on time, I'm gonna pull out of the slides for a second. I'm gonna show you what I'm talking about. Okay? So I'm gonna give you a visual example. And then I'll talk about how that is technically possible, and that is part of the beauty of the cloud, but it's always gonna be easier if in the same thing. But yes, you can share, and we just talked about this. You can share something from Google if they only use Microsoft. You definitely can. Okay, so I went to the next slide. Sorry. All right, so let's talk about this. So I don't know where that's at, but it's very cool.
Yes, it is. It's like
Yeah.
I want to know where it is. Bonnie, is that on your list?
Hang on. Someone pronounce that for me.
Whalebone.
Durban.
In South Africa.
Okay. Okay, so I'm sure you all can guess, but in this instance, I am using a computer. I am on that computer right now. I'm just using a mouse pad to control it, right? So I want to show you. So I'm going to, like a normal person would, I'm going to open Word. Eventually. Maybe. Okay. So I'm like, okay, this is a really important document that needs to be saved in the cloud. Did I make spelling mistake? Oh man, right at the end. Cloud. Okay. So this is no different than what anyone's ever done, right? I mean, go in and make a Word document. The power is, and I'm not going to go into too much depth on exactly how to set that up, because in theory we should be there, but I want you to understand this. So what I've done, sorry, I didn't mean to kick you out there. But what I've done in theory is I've told OneDrive, which is the product I'm using right now, I've told OneDrive that, hey, I want to back up anything that I save in a certain folder, I want that to be backed up to the cloud. And if we have time, I will go through and I'll show all the toggle buttons and whatnot. But just as normal, I'm going to hit File, Save As, and then don't worry too much about the details of this. All I'm saying is, well, I'm going to put this document where I want to put it. And we could put it in Documents. Okay? So I'm saving it in Documents. And I don't know if I meant to do that. Yep, I did. Okay. So I'm going to just title it that. This is a really important document that needs to be saved in the cloud. Very long. I don't recommend making it that complicated, but all I'm going to do is save it. I clicked it. I'm waiting. Okay. Now, in theory, that's really all I have to do. Now, I'll prove to you what I just did. So, again, let's say I'm on a completely different computer. I'm at home, whatever, and I open my browser. For me, I use Chrome. So I'm going to go to Chrome. I'm going to go to OneDrive.com, which I already had pulled up just for the sake of time and ease. And if I scroll down here, I might have to refresh it or wait a second. Oh man. Of course you would do that to me. Sorry guys, 1 second. And then, okay, so I said that I saved it inside my documents, right? So now I'm going to go into my documents. And I should see this is a really important document that must be saved in the cloud. Okay, so it's in the cloud. I know it's on the computer and I don't want to confuse people, but the way I'm looking at it now via the web, that's not on the computer. I'm not looking at it as if it was on the computer. This is my proof to say it did make it to the cloud. And that's the beauty of it. I didn't have to do anything strange other than save it to the right spot that I told it to. But the beauty of that is, and I'll show you, I didn't have to do a lot to make the right place to save it. Yes.
Maybe explain how you got it to the cloud, because there's options whether you save it to your PC, the cloud.
Yep.
That might be.
Yeah, so in a perfect world, if you're using most of it like you're intended, I saved it to my documents folder like I would save any other document. And by default, OneDrive and most backup app cloud applications, when you have it on the computer, they back up that folder automatically. So all I did is I turned on OneDrive, I signed in, I said, yes, I want to back up my documents. And so all I did is save the file to my documents. That's really all I did.
So what I'm talking about is like when you went to your save or save as, it lets you pick where you want to save it to.
Right. File.
That's how you can pick your cloud versus your computer.
Yep. My point is the way that you should use the cloud, there should not be a difference. And in the way I have this set up, there is not a difference. The documents folder is the cloud and it is on the computer. It's the same thing. I know exactly what you mean, but I don't want to. There are definitely 100 different ways you can configure this. You can make those completely separate, but that's not really the main goal. What was the question I heard? I thought someone was asking something.
Well, there was, I did somewhere on top, I guess I can't.
Oh, you're fine. So I'll show you. So again, let me redo this guy. So all I did is I opened a Word document. Okay. New document. And I, up here at File, right? I'm going to hit File, Save. And what Kathy was saying is there are tons of different options here of where you want to save it. By default, OneDrive, Apple, iCloud, which is Apple's product, Google Drive, they try to treat the cloud documents and files and folders and stuff the same as your computer documents. That's the beauty of the syncing part, right? Because the goal is to make this bulletproof, right? So if you save it in your documents like you always do, they're going to try and make sure that that document or that folder's uploaded.
So then you're saving it twice.
You are saving it once, but the cloud works in the background and it syncs. Yeah.
But you originally have to set it up so it stays.
Yeah, don't worry about, we'll get to the details. We don't want to worry about the configuration part of it yet. I want to make sure we understand this base concept first. If you're asking how is it doing that?
You're bypassing, like I normally click this PC and then I click C drive.
Sure.
And that.
Do you want me to do that?
So what you're doing is you're just bypassing that by clicking on the OneDrive.
No. If I go to this,
because you have your automatic.
Right, which is default.
So that's why you don't have to save it twice.
Exactly.
You save it once.
Yes.
And if you're synced,
yes.
then it automatically pops into the cloud.
Yes.
But I don't yet know how to sync it.
That's okay.
Because up there you had something that you picked that I couldn't read.
Right. All I did is save it. I haven't done anything with it.
Save as, I save mine to my screen, to my
Desktop?
desktop.
Perfect.
Just so it's there
Yeah.
when I,
Perfect. And if that's what you're,
and it's save as, so I
Mhm.
move it, updated it.
Yep.
Period.
and if that's what your routine
It's not
is,
complicated, that's all
no,
I have
and
to
it
do.
doesn't need to be. No, and it doesn't need to be at all, and that's the beauty of it. So like what Kathy was saying,
What I do is very simple.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
and that's why I want to say like this in general should be very simple, and that's why I want to. That's why I left a lot of room for a demonstration because I want to make sure we get through this, right? So like Kathy was saying, if I just go to my documents folder like I always do, right? It's gonna yell at me. Come on. Hang on. If I go to my documents folder like I always do, it's not being nice about it, and I save this new document to be in cloud, and I save it. It's going to be in here. And this is the cloud. So, and Kathy, I don't want to say that you're not right, because you are absolutely right. But
If it's automatically set to see, it's gonna be on the cloud.
right, exactly. Yeah,
You have to trust it.
you do have to, and we'll get to that.
You have to earn trust.
Yeah,
You have
yeah.
to trust. It's kind of
Absolutely.
our-
Absolutely. And we will 100%.
It's showing you how you can access that. Just And have to so trust it. after you
Yeah.
test it a few times, you'll have more faith in it. You'll
I
get
understand
there.
how you
You'll
develop
get there.
trust. I know how you develop
Yeah.
What if I don't want everything I type on my computer going up into the cloud because I don't know who reads the cloud? And I mean, what kind of security do you have there?
Completely valid question. And assuming that we get to those slides, I have no, because it is. No. No, but I just want to say always the biggest enemy to security is convenience.
I couldn't hear that.
The biggest enemy to security is convenience. That is a lot of my job, trying to figure out how to keep things secure but usable. And so a cloud is at the crux of that whole situation. So completely valid, and we will get there. Those questions, but I just wanted to say that those questions are normal.
I never could have put so well.
Yeah.
But when you got like a little aggravated, security, I literally thought I changed my mind about that a few years ago. That I actually look at every level of security as like, okay, it's doing its job.
Yeah.
It's doing its job. And it changes my mindset about it.
You
Instead, I mean, I'm not saying that in the
No,
middle
no.
of a presentation, you're talking about
No.
mindset of that nonsense. But
Yeah,
like I said, I just look at all that stuff. Like I don't have my stuff remember me if it's a bank account.
There's nothing that you will do with a computer that doesn't have an aspect of security associated with it, right? Not nowadays. So it's always a factor, and it's a good mindset to have, right? But anyway, I will show you the toggles because I feel like we're getting caught up on that. But my point is that as long as you have the cloud application set up correctly, and I'll show you this, then all you do is you just use the computer like you do normally, right? That's what I'm trying to get to. You're not doing anything fancy, and that's probably why you may be confused because you're like, okay, where did he do that? No, I didn't do that. I didn't make the copy. The computer is smart enough. The cloud is designed well enough where you do your human things. You do your crazy stuff, whatever. The computer worries about putting it up. And of course, that comes with security concerns and trust concerns. It does, and we'll address those. But does everyone understand that? In theory, all you're doing is using it like normal.
Sure, with documents, what about photos?
I'll get there. It's not different. It is different, but it's not in like.
I mean, you still got the cloud. Beat 'em up.
Right. Well, and you're 100%. Sorry, I'll get there because I knew someone was going to ask that question. But see, this new document to be saved in the cloud, I didn't do it. You saw me. I didn't do anything other than save the document, and it put it up in the cloud. I'm recording. Sorry, didn't mean to do that. I'm recording on the phone that's connected to this account. But if I go on my phone right now and I open the OneDrive app, that file is going to be there, and all I did was save it. The OneDrive is so OneDrive is Microsoft's name for their cloud. Yeah, and so the application is just
So it might be something different.
Right, like
Cloud is one.
right, like Google is Google Drive, Apple is iCloud. So you'll hear those terms, and that's what they mean. It's just their name for the same concept. You know what I mean? Maybe not, but you know. So iCloud photos, right? So, oh, sorry, I'm going up instead of down. Okay, so I added a whole bunch of black photos so you could see this. So I wanted to show you. Is anyone going to be bothered if I take a selfie with everyone? Okay. So
I'll contact my agent later.
So you saw me. I didn't do anything other than take the photo, right? It's there. It's on the phone. That's all I did. It's going to take a minute because I'm sure the Wi-Fi here isn't great, but it's going to show up here in my iCloud. And we'll come back and I'll show you. But I didn't do, just for the record, I didn't do anything else. We don't have to talk about it.
I was wondering what kind of
No.
food he was going to show us.
I know. Anyway, the connection's a little slow. And that is another consideration. But in theory, I'm completely off the slides at this point because I can see where the pain point is at this point. But the problem is that using the cloud is the easy part. The setting it up, and I'll show you, that's the tricky part. And that tends to be, not that you can't do it on your own, but that tends to be what people ask for my help with, like doing that initial setup, making sure things are pointing at the right place. But in theory, after that, you're just using it like you normally would. In the simplest form. Yes.
Can you keep things out of the cloud?
You can, and that has to do with a lot of the way you set it up. Like I said, in theory, what we really want to do with the cloud, one of the main goals of it is to do syncing. So to make the cloud and your device completely happy, it's going to be the same across. Not saying that you can't separate those. It does add complexity though. No, I know. And hypothetically, absolutely you can. It just adds complexity. Yeah. So, okay, I feel like we got off there a little bit. Is everyone okay still? We all on the same page now? Okay. Again, it's a really big concept that's actually fairly simple. And that's why it seems so hard to understand, even though there's not much to it. And I bet you if I refresh this, it's gonna, oh man, it's proving me a liar. But yeah, I think so. Because I did this all before. I tested it before I came here because I was like, I can't let it not work in front of them, or they're gonna think I'm lying to them. Okay.
So is it safe to have both physically on your computer and in the cloud, or are you?
In a general sense, yes. So photos and specifically on Apple for photos, it does slightly different with photos. There is what they call storage optimization, meaning that it saves the actual original perfect copy in the cloud and only gives you a smaller, lower quality copy on your phone. That's to save space. But in general, yes, that's what we're seeing. That's part of the syncing and part of the backups. So you're always keeping you're keeping the same copies in both places. The exact same copy.
I have so many photos that I can't keep them all on my phone.
And that's so right.
So
and
I after I have them backed up, and I choose to have them on my phone.
Exactly. No, exactly. And that's, if we go, I won't go back to the slide because I don't want to mix things, but see this amount of content that I have, that does not fit on this.
Yeah.
It's because that Apple can, and I think Android does it too. I just can't tell you specifically where the setting is, but they use cloud as as a master source because it's way easier. Like Androids, you can technically add storage. iPhones, you cannot add storage. That's just part of their device. They've always been like that. Whatever level you buy it at is what it sticks at. But the cloud, you can go in there and you can add. It's so super easy. It's 2 clicks of a button, whatever. Sure it does, because it's not yours. You're renting space. Yes, but most of them do. Yeah, again, part of the beauty of the cloud is a lot of it's cross-platform. But I digress. Let me go a little further. So, okay, so we save the document in the cloud, and then I'll just prove to you. So again, I'm not going to touch this, okay? I'm going to go to the cloud. I'm going to go to that document, and I'm going to open this document. And again, this can be, I only have one computer today because it'd be a lot to switch HDMI cables and stuff like this, but assume I'm at home, going to onedrive.com, and I'm opening this document. I want to say, okay, I wanted to make this change and have it show up on the computer. So it does look similar, but I want you to be very clear that I'm still in the browser. It's just another tab. I open the document in another tab. Okay? This is on the computer. It already put that text on the physical document that's on the computer. Again, that seems like magic. I didn't do anything other than use it, right? That's the beauty of it. And you can see here, so this is on the physical computer, not in the cloud, this document right now. But do you see this little tick mark? That's telling me that someone else right now is typing on that. So I talk about collaboration. One of the things you can do, and one of the reasons people use it is because I could technically, I'm not two people, so I can't do this, but you could technically be typing in the same document at the same time. Again, there's nothing fancy you have to do with that. I didn't do anything additional setup or anything like that. That's just because it's saved in the cloud, it works like that.
I didn't see you save that. Did you save that?
I saved it once, and it's back.
Oh, so you don't have to save it each time?
No. No. So this is Microsoft products, right? And I know we have a various slew of different, Apple, Android, whatever. But once you save it into the OneDrive, it saves automatically. And that's so. Don't get into that habit though. Just assume that you're saving it. But yeah, just because again, that's part of the trust thing. But anyway, so you see my point. It works both ways, and that's the syncing part. And then it's a backup because if I toss that computer out right now, I can go to the cloud and see it, right? So, do the concepts make sense? Okay. The concepts are what is important, okay, in my mind. Now, because I've gotten so many questions about it and I'm going to talk about it anyway, I'm going to show you how I set this up. So really, and you don't have to take detailed notes, but it's going to be very similar no matter what device you're on. It's going to look slightly different, of course, but the concept is the same. So let's assume, it's already set up, but let's assume I'm starting from scratch. So I was like, okay, it's Microsoft Computer, Microsoft Windows. It's OneDrive. Of course, that makes it really simple. So I'm going to just open OneDrive. Sorry. OneDrive. So I find OneDrive here. And that's going to open the app. So it opened the folder because it's already set up. But really what it's going to do, the first time you ever set it up, it's going to open a screen where you sign into your Microsoft account. Now, so similar to this, but it's going to have you sign in first, right? And this is an important thing I want to mention. Everything is tied to an account in the cloud. They have to know where to store the stuff at, right? So you have to tell it that it's you and that you're the one saving it. On Microsoft, it's your Microsoft account. Or on OneDrive, it's your Microsoft account. On Apple, it's your Apple ID. On Google, it would be your Google account, right? But all I did is I signed in here. I opened the application. I signed into the application, and then it asked me, what do I want to back up? Now, this is my company computer, so ours are a little different than you wanted to, but see, by default, it's just like, okay, do you want to back up your documents? Sure. Do you want to back up your pictures? Sure. Do you want to back up your desktop? Sure. And so all I did is I turned these tick marks on, and then it saved it for me. That was it. You don't have to do any of the magic moving or anything like you yourself. You're just telling the application, you're pointing it really. You're pointing at, okay, what do we want to back up? What do we want to sync? Et cetera, et cetera. You agree? For the most part?
Yeah, just explain the difference between on and off switch,
Sure.
just so they know that.
Yeah,
because
no.
They're looking at that and it looks like they're on.
Well, they are
It is on.
technically,
I'm just saying, so people understand that
yeah,
it's
you
on
have,
and off.
in this example, you have to kind of pretend a little bit with me that if you were looking at this on your computer at home, they are completely off. And then they are saying that they cannot, there is nothing to sync anyway, so it wouldn't do anything. But if you were to click this button, which I cannot do because of the restrictions we have, it would turn this blue color, right?
Those are on.
Yeah, those are on. So it's just like on your phone, toggle off, toggle on, where it's like darker gray, green, darker black, blue. It's all those toggle switches. And then it would tell you at the end, you are backing up this many gigs, or you are backing up this many gigs or kilobytes or whatever.
It's automatically on.
Yes, usually. By default, if you go to the store, and same thing with an iPhone, but let's start with Microsoft, and I'll go to Apple. By default, if you go and buy a brand new computer from Best Buy, Walmart, whoever, I probably named the worst two places, but anyway, if you go to either of those and you sign in and walk through the computer setup, it's going to ask you straight up, oh, do you want OneDrive to back up your files? And if you hit yes on that, which is by default yes, then this is all set up for you automatically. Now, that is not to say that you shouldn't verify, but in theory, it does it automatically. Same thing with your iPhone. If you went to the store and you bought a brand new iPhone and you signed in with your Apple ID, it's going to back up a lot of things, almost everything automatically, including your photos, text messages, things like that. And contacts, calendars, things like that. That's really when I won't lie to you, cloud is really easy when it's easy. So, but it can get really complicated when you start having problems. I actually just helped a client not too long ago. They had a computer that was being backed up to the cloud, but then they ran out of storage on the local computer, and the cloud wanted to keep syncing stuff, and so they would delete and it would sync and fill, delete and sync and fill, and that was a mess. But my point is that's an extreme case. In most cases, it is simple. I want to believe that it's simple. It's pretty hands off. Okay. Let's see if my photo ever showed up. Oh no, it didn't. What is going on? Hang on, let me make sure I actually like.
If you have a choice between OneDrive and Google Drive, do you have a preference?
I'm gonna get there too.
Okay.
Okay. You're totally fine. No, it's fine. Okay, so photos. I'm not going to get into details about the photos because really my point is if you look at the photo slide and the file slide, they're almost the exact same. The goal is pretty much the same, other than I knew that people were going to ask about one and the other individually, but I'll show you when it syncs. But all I did is I took a photo with my phone and it backed up to the cloud. I never worried about it. And then if I didn't have I do this sometimes. If I leave my personal phone at work or at home and I'm like, oh, there's a photo I need or want to show someone, I log into my iCloud at work, show them, and then it's all good. I don't have to have the physical phone. Same thing with the documents, right? I'm going to skip the sharing right now. I feel like I want to get to some other stuff because the sharing is going to add complexity to that. I will come back if we have time. And I will probably end up doing a 103 on this as well. And maybe we talk about sharing all on its own, because based on this, I think it can be. So don't feel like I'm skipping out on you. I just think it could be on its own thing. Okay, so again, I talked about documents and photos because those are the two main things, but you can sync almost anything digitally, right? Like, who uses like Gmail or Yahoo? So when you use it on the computer, do you go to yahoo.com, gmail.com and use it? And then do you also have that on your phone? Do you do anything to put those emails on your phone if you see them on the computer or vice versa? right? Because they're cloud services. You've been using the cloud for your email for so long you didn't even know it, right? So that's the easiest example to say. How many people use calendars where you add it on the computer and then it shows up on your phone, or vice versa? Sure, fair enough. Or your tablet or your phone. Maybe that's a better example for some. So calendars are a lot of things where people are like, okay, I'm on the go. I have my phone. I input my calendar entry, and then I'm way later, hours later, I'm at home. I'm playing on my tablet, whatever. I'm like, oh, when was that appointment? On the tablet, I go to the calendar, and that entry that I added on my phone is now on the tablet as well. Again, this is all set up by doing the same exact thing. Yeah.
Yeah, one thing that I enjoy about the calendar is that my children put in my calendar.
Yes.
Dance, their classes, time, putting. So I can just.
Yeah.
I don't have to remember that my daughter said pick up the kid at 3:00. It's already, it's on my phone.
And
she put it in my calendar.
And that's part of this. I think, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to skip out on you guys. I think I'm going to make this its own class because I really think it can be. But that's,
Which is,
yeah,
which is wonderful. I think it's great.
it is. It's fantastic. And that's part of the beauty of.
I never share a calendar, but because then I have to write it beforehand. I have to write it down. I remember it, this way.
No, it's great. It's really, I mean, it's a fantastic tool. Yeah, it's a fantastic. It's yeah. It's a fantastic tool between spouses. At least me and my wife. You know, you add calendar. I add stuff to my calendar, and she has my calendar on her phone, and vice versa. So, really quick, let me get, and I'll go to. I'll ask questions. Anyway, so contacts, email, calendars. Again, these are all things that use the cloud, but again, you don't have to do anything special for each one of these because you're like, okay, now I have to worry about syncing this, and this. But really, the device does a lot of this automatically on its own. Passwords. Who of you went to my password class or my password manager class or any of those? Yeah. So did anyone do you remember when I was talking about that and I said, oh, if you save a password on your computer or whatever and then it goes to your phone? I didn't talk about it then, but it's a cloud service, right? Again, you've been using the cloud forever, you just never knew it. Anyway, so this, like I said, almost anything that is data can be on the cloud, which can be good or bad depending on your opinion on it. Okay, I'm going to get to that, but I want to get to this stuff. Okay, so again, this is the most important part. When you're talking about the cloud, we're talking about security and trust. Trust is a big one. And really what you have to do, because I'm saying right now, oh, everything is backing up to the cloud. You can sit over here if you want. Are you sure? Okay. Not to call you out, but I just didn't want you to feel all the way out there. So I'm telling you right now, oh, it's all magic. You just take the photo and it ends up in the cloud. That is true in a sense, but there is still a trust aspect. You have to make sure it's at least turned on in doing so. The perfect example is what I did is where I saved a document on the computer and then it showed up in the cloud. I'm so mad that my photo isn't showing up. Anyway, so again, sorry, I'm clicking things, but because so what I'm talking about here is going through and exactly what I was telling you before. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to operate on a weird angle here. But again, these are the types of toggles I'm talking about. You have to make sure that they're turned on to sync, right? On iPhone, which is the other biggest provider too, if you go like iCloud, iPhone, sync toggles, there's a menu in your phone that'll look like this. Anyway, so I know that's kind of tiny, but bear with me. But again, it's just telling you what's syncing. So books are syncing, calendars are not. Your shortcuts are syncing, your voice memos are syncing. So again, you want to make sure that they are turned on and they are syncing. And no matter what application you use to do this syncing, whether it's Google, Microsoft, iCloud, you always are going to go to the app in a general sense and make sure that those toggles are clicked on. Right? We want to make sure that it's actually doing what we want. Okay, that's sharing. I'm gonna get those to you. Okay, I'm skipping a little bit around and I apologize. Okay, so again, kind of what you guys were already describing, a lot of the issues that we have is like we don't know what is syncing, which account we're using, we want to verify that. Duplicate photos and files, saving files in too many places, running out of storage, sharing things by accident. These are all things that people tend to ask me questions about. But really, we don't have to tackle each one of those problems individually. They're very well managed with just a few general guidelines, right? So, in general, it's better to choose one provider. I understand what that means because I use every single one of them myself. But I'm also myself, and you're also yourselves. But what I see a lot is people who have a Microsoft computer and a Apple phone and things like that. They tend to save things on one, and then it may go into the Microsoft cloud, but then they're expecting to see it on their phone, and then they never see it. So again, we want to stick to one where we can. And then people are like, okay, well, how do I know or how do I decide what to choose or what to use? Choose by current products is really the best way to do it. So if you have mostly Android stuff, probably Google. If you have mostly Microsoft products, probably OneDrive. If you have mostly Apple products, probably iCloud, right? Look and feel. Some people just like the way Google Drive works and they have an iPhone and a Windows computer, and that's okay. You can do that. Again, you just have to go into those apps. Like you would go, if you want to use Google Drive on your iPhone, you would go to the App Store, download Google Drive, and then sign into it and make sure all those boxes are checked, right? Okay. And this essentially helps reduce confusion because sometimes I've seen it where people on their computer, they'll have OneDrive syncing stuff and they'll have Google Drive syncing stuff. And then you have 3 copies of 2. And then a lot of the time they don't realize that they've paid subscriptions for storage in both and they're double paying for things that they don't need. So trying to stick to one provider as much as you can helps with 90% of all these problems, to be honest with you. Anyway, just if you want a fun tidbit really quick, see how this is all messed up? This is an AI generated image. I could not for the life of me get the AI to be smart enough to put a box here and then words here. So anyway, okay, stay organized. So this is the second biggest key to anything. I'm not singling anyone out, I promise. But I've worked with a lot of you enough to know that a lot of the problem is that we have many things with many files on them and we don't know what version we have here or what version we have there, and that is a big problem in the sense that when you're syncing stuff, maybe you thought that whatever was on your phone was the newest version or the latest version, and then it's syncing up to the cloud and it's all safe and good, but you're using the computer and it's not syncing to the cloud or not syncing to the correct cloud, and it's not the right version. So really, all you have to do with this is that you just make sure that you keep one provider, because usually when you have multiple folders and stuff like that, it's because those other providers will create those folders for you and you're accidentally saving it there. So that's already going to save you or fix that for you. And then just make sure you have a pattern. I know that sounds really boring, sorting documents and photos and stuff, but the better pattern you have for stuff is great. So in other words, in my documents folder, I'm going to have like receipts and statements and things like that. I don't want like receipts and statements and then receipts. You know what I mean? Like you want a structure, an easy to follow structure. Because then if things do end up in the wrong place, you have a good idea of why or where it ended up. Am I losing anyone yet? Okay. Naming things clearly. Now, I know, but if you take nothing else outside of this, avoid vague names. Okay, so I'm not going to ask that. Vague names. And I'll explain exactly what I mean by this. Who does online banking? Yay, everyone. Does anyone go out and actually download their statements and stuff? Okay. A lot of banks, when you go and download the statement, it'll by default name that statement file statement. Fantastic. What does that mean? Now, fine. When you're saving it there, you're like, okay, that's the statement. No problem. I understand that. Now go 6 months in the future and go back and try to find which of those statements. Right, exactly. Because all it's going to do, because obviously you can't have two files with the same name, so it's going to say statement, statement 1, statement 2. Some banks will do it by default. Inside the file they'll be dated, but the name of the file will not be dated, and that's the problem. So a lot of people get themselves in trouble because they never rename the actual file themselves, and they'll save it in the right place, right? It's in this bank statements, statement, and again, it's perfectly fine because in your head you're like, okay, I know which statement this is because it's April. I'm saving it now. Great. And I'm telling you, it seems really simple and easy, but it happens so much. And for those of you who have been in my classes, I've been trying to teach people more about searching. And instead of like knowing exactly where things are, starting to use like search utilities in the cloud and on your phone and stuff like that. If you search statement, you're going to find every statement. But if you, and let's even say that, let's say you name the statement underscore this day, month, year. Well, if you go into Google or whatever and you search statement by date, but you have multiple banks, then you're going to be like, okay, I have 2 March statements. Which folder did they come through? And of course, you can open them and view them, but maybe it would even be better to go this bank statement for this month, day, and year, right? So again, it's not hard to keep things easy in the cloud. It's a lot of hygiene, and most of it is just coming up with a system and deciding to stick with it. Keep important things close. I'll make this pretty easy. So in most cloud providers, if you look, so number one, for important documents, don't bury them in a lot of lower documents as much as you can. Make them closer to the top so they're easier to get to. Like in other words, if you think of like a file folder, you can put folders and folders and folders and as deep as you want to go, right? But the lower you do that, the more risk you're going to have of getting confused in the meantime and figuring out where you're at in that chain of whatever. So my point is if you, I'll just show you an example. So this is my cloud, right? If I go into, it's organized for me, but you'll get it. So I went into this folder, 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 into this folder. Unless you absolutely plan on understanding where that's at, you can get lost. I went through, I think, 10 folders just now, right? So my point is, instead of going all the way down to that lower folder, maybe keep it at the very top with everything else if it's that important. I don't know why that. Get out of here. Anyway, Does that make sense? It's not complicated, but it's something I see a lot of people catch themselves on. Okay. And then, so most cloud services, my point here is, see this star? If you are like, okay, I want to super organize, and to super organize, I have to keep it buried, but it's something I use all the time and I don't want to draw all the way down. All of them that I know, they have this little star and you can just favorite that. And then you have your little favorites section and it'll be here. Right. Yeah, it's very similar to using like shortcuts on your web browser. Okay. Remind me later. Get out of here. Okay. 2 other big hygiene items. One, yeah. So if you're syncing stuff that is absolutely detrimental to you, and you are banking on the fact that it's in the cloud. Now, if the cloud is just something extra and it's a copy in there, and then you're okay with whether it's gone or not, whatever. But if it's something that's super important, photos are a hard example to say because I know every photo is super important to you. So I know you're not going to go through every month and check that every photo's in your iCloud, but that problem is usually solved by this number. So if I were to go on my phone and my phone says, "Oh, I only have 5,000 or 10,000 photos," and then so if I go on the phone and it has 32,000 and I go in the cloud and it only has 5,000, then I know something's wrong, right? Same thing with files. If I go into my files and I'm like, okay, one of my favorite files hasn't been modified or changed for months, then I'm like, okay, something's weird and I need to make sure that's taken care of. Again, the cloud is beautiful, wonderful, amazing tool, but it does have its issues sometimes. Very rarely. I have never really had an issue with it, to be honest with you. But for things that I know are super important, it is always great to go in and make sure, just like a really quick check. Go into your favorites folder for all those really important stuff. Make sure that they've all been updated recently. You're like, okay, does that make sense? Okay.
You're not getting it? No, I'm just saying, I'm probably not doing it, makes sense, but I'm probably not gonna do it.
Yeah, and do you want my opinion? I don't do it either because I trust it probably too much. But
if it's super important for me, it's not gonna only be saved on the cloud.
I agree with you there too. But for a lot of people, the cloud is their main backup source, right?
And for the most part, most of our stuff isn't like ending if we lose it.
Exactly. And that's my point.
I'm not trusting solely to the cloud.
There you go. Wise words. And then delete old stuff. So again, as we were talking about, we rent space in the cloud, right? So a lot of providers give you some storage for free. Like Google is 15 gigs for free. OneDrive is 5, Apple is 5, but after that, you pay. So make sure delete the old stuff to make sure you're not paying for storage you don't need. And plus, it's also, if you search for things, it's less things to filter through, stuff like that. Again, I know a lot of these seem like, well, yeah, duh. Why are you but I see it a lot. So I'm telling you about it. Okay, I have a small security spiel I'm going to go on. I feel like this class was a pretty big roller coaster. I felt like everyone was kind of on the same page, and then we were like kind of off and kind of on. Are we all feeling okay? Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. I am happy to teach this subject as many times as it takes for people to understand it, because cloud is a part of our world right now. If you want to hear more about it, or you have, let's say you're like, I want to hear more about the cloud, but I specifically have this struggle, please send that to me. I would love to teach that. Okay, protecting your account. This is nothing I haven't said before, but it applies to this as well. What is your account associated with? Like if you have a Microsoft account, an Apple account, a Google account, what do you log in with? No, but when you go to sign into those, what are you typing in? Before your password, which is usually exactly. Okay. So if we have a backup in the cloud, and which works, and we lose our device, phone, computer, whatever, what are we going to do? We're going to go to the cloud. We're going to try and restore that or download it from the cloud, right? But what if we can't log into the cloud? Now where are we at? We might be able to reset the password, maybe. But where do they usually reset your password to? Your email. I will say this time and time again because I have seen the problem happen. If you have an email account that you use on everything, periodically make sure you can sign into that. And I don't mean click on the shortcut and sign out of it. Or I don't mean click on the shortcut and look at the email. I mean, go sign completely out of your email if you have the password and then sign back into it. Make sure you can do that because I have seen people lose backups because they're like, it has backed up, but they can't log into the account. And then they can't reset their password in their email. It's just one of those things. I would hate to see people lose all their precious family photos because they already, got thrown off the boat and they're having a bad day because they got to buy a new phone and all that fun stuff. And then they figure out they can't get their photos back.
That's the reason why I have more than one phone.
Sure.
I can access it.
Up 100%. Enable MFA. This is for everything, but specifically on your Apple account. Now it's going to vary by provider, but usually if you go into settings and you look underneath the term of security, you're going to see the term multi-factor authentication, MFA, TFA, two-factor authentication, anything like that. Recovery options, you see it underneath a ton of names. But the big thing with that is, especially if you tend to be the type of person who reuses passwords, I don't know if a lot of people keep a lot of vital information in there, but let's say that you're doing your taxes and you save your tax documents to your documents folder and you forget that that syncs up to the cloud. And for some reason, you have a compromised password and they log into your cloud account and then they get your social security number and things like that. MFA is something you should have on almost anything anyway, but when you're talking about backups, critical information like that, you always want to make sure that not only a password is the only thing that can get into that account. Does everyone understand what I mean by 2FA? Nowadays, it's 90% of the time it's that 6-digit code that they want you to type in after they text it to you, or that email that they send you. For Apple users, it's when it pops up on your phone saying, hey, someone's trying to access your phone. Can you type in the 6 digits? Okay. And do you trust the cloud? Okay. I'll make this quick. So at the end of the day, it's totally up to you. But what I will say on the subject is it is a tool. It's not a necessity. If you are concerned about having backups of your data and you don't want to use the cloud, there is absolutely ways to do that are also convenient. Again, security, convenience is is the enemy of security, right? So the reason why people use clouds is because it is really simple. I will tell you that Microsoft, Google, Apple, those companies that are doing that, their budgets for security are enormous. They spend a lot of time and effort, and Microsoft alone is actually not only do they implement security, they are actually one of the writers of the books on security. So not only are they doing it themselves, but they're creating the standard, right? But again, there is you are trusting someone. I mean, I'm not going to lie about that. That is a factor. But it's either something you're okay with or you're not. And I don't mean to make that sound hard, but like I do, because I use the products, I understand them. I see what they goes into for their security. But my biggest point is like you're gonna have more issues security wise if you don't follow these kind of instructions than you are with Microsoft themselves. And I can't speak for what happens behind closed doors, but in a general sense, if it is very difficult for any personnel within those companies to access your information. There would have to be a lot of paperwork to happen for them to go into it. Again, if all the rules are followed, I can't speak on any of that, but all I can speak on is the rules. But Apple's notorious for like not even letting law enforcement for getting into people's phones because it's against their privacy rules and stuff like that. So yeah. I mean, that's my whole spiel. There's other text up here, but that's the gist of it. I mean, yeah, of course.